Well, isn't that nice music? Hello, everybody. Dr. Stephen Walker, licensed psychologist, coming at you live on this beautiful Friday night on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Tonight, we've got a great returning guest. Candace is going to be talking about how she's healed from sexual trauma in her past, how she's continuing to heal. She's here to inspire people out there who are carrying around these emotional wounds and who honestly and genuinely feel that they're just broken for life and that there's nothing they can do to heal it. She's here to remind everybody that no, that's BS. We can absolutely work on our emotional wounds. Once you accept that you're still feeling what you're feeling, then you can start working on it. So again, remember everybody, and I say this every show, this is about you guys engaging with me and with our guest. If you know somebody who is suffering, from sexual trauma or sexual abuse or alcohol, whatever it may be, anybody, if you out there are watching this live and you want to take us in a different direction and talk about something else, please feel free. This show is about normalizing conversations about mental illness and mental health. Why? We don't talk about it enough. It stays hidden. It stays, people just suffer in silence, quiet desperation their whole lives, figuring that there's no point in doing anything about it. So please, everybody, remember, everyone has a degree of mental illness, myself included, my wife, my neighbors, everyone in my family, everyone in politics, in the whole wide world. Everyone has a degree of mental illness. The key is not enough people talk about it. Okay. So if you're catching this show after it's posted, please ask me a question. Please make a comment. A lot of what I engage with people after the shows are posted. Do not hesitate. If you're watching this and you know somebody, please tag them. Please make a comment or engage. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Candace, and we're going to talk about where she's at now, where she used to be, some of the things she's still struggling with. And you can engage with her and ask her questions, and we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and bring Candace in. Hey, Candace, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
How's your week going?
Good. Just trying to get through the holidays.
Yeah, I hear you. Is that are the holidays in Florida any different than the rest of the states?
Just hotter.
And lots of mosquitoes and lots of bugs and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's just not right for Christmas, but it is what it is.
Absolutely. And again, Candace, thanks for coming on. I know this is a little awkward, not awkward, but, different, talking openly about this. And I guess we can lead off with that. You and I were chatting a little bit before we went live. You were talking about how a year ago, 2 years ago, you could never even have imagined, hey, Samantha, you could never even imagine talking about this. So why don't we lead off with that?
Yeah. First off, I want to thank you, Dr. Steve, for doing this on your own time and producing this.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's just, it goes a long way. I know you know that, but I don't think you know how much it really goes.
Well, you wonder sometimes, so I appreciate you saying that. As you know, we've worked together for a while. I love what I do. And I really do firmly believe that human beings haven't even tapped their ability to heal. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. You and I were talking earlier, even a year ago, possibly 6 months ago, I couldn't have imagined myself doing something like this, to where I'm openly talking about my experiences and my journey, even though I hate that buzzword, but
sure. What don't you like about that?
It just sounds so, I don't know, hippie, I guess. I don't know. But
touchy-feely, right?
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't have imagined myself being able to comfortably do this with more than more than people that I explicitly trust. And it has proven to me, I've come a long way, that I'm able to do this and do it comfortably. So then that's a lot in part to you, by the way.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I've always deflected that and said, you're doing the hard work, you're doing the heavy lifting, you're climbing the mountain, so to speak. But I appreciate that. And I do, I do respect my role in that, but the healing is within you. So let's talk about that too. Where were you before you did this work? Like what give the viewers, give people catching this on, you know, Facebook, YouTube,
Mhm.
or Twitter, what was Candace like 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, or before you even started doing the work? And we should clarify that you had worked with somebody a little bit before, and then we started working. So there's something inside of you that was continually trying to heal. But where were you prior to doing the work, psychologically, emotionally?
Not in a good place. I didn't understand myself. I didn't understand the coping mechanisms that I was using. I didn't understand why I have impulse control issues.
Hmm.
I didn't understand why, after so many years, there were still lingering issues from the trauma. I remember the first therapist that I worked with diagnosed me with PTSD.
Hmm.
And I was like, no, 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 I've never been in the military. I had never even heard of PTSD being for somebody other than a military veteran. I didn't know it was possible.
Hmm.
So that's how ignorant I was of the fallout from all the trauma that I had.
Hmm.
Um, it just, I had sleeping issues. I had night terrors. I had mood swings that were epic. Um, uh, Shopping issues. That was my impulse control issues. Eating issues. Um, and none of this made sense to me. And I couldn't figure out, if I didn't like what I was doing, why couldn't I stop what I was doing?
Hmm.
Um, I thought that there was basically a time frame, you know, on how long it should have bothered me.
Hmm.
And because I was
Hmm.
going past my allotted time, um,
You haven't gotten over it yet, Candace?
exactly.
But
No,
that's what I hear all the time, is people say that. People like are always saying, "That's still bothering you?"
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it is. It still bothers me. And and my trauma, my situation happened when I was a teenager,
Hmm.
15, 16, and or no, I am 48. Sorry.
I
uh,
got shoes older than you. No, I'm kidding.
so yeah, I mean, I've come to accept that there is no time frame. There is
Mhm.
no handbook. There is no specific roadmap that will give you all the answers. You
Hmm.
know, and even if you think you found one, just because you don't do, or I accepted about myself that it's okay for me to follow my roadmap
Hmm.
that I have to follow, and not what somebody else thinks I should follow, or not what is put out there in the media, you know, or things like that.
Mhm.
I see commercials all the time where it says, take a pill for this, take a pill for
Mm.
your mood, take a pill for, mood swings or attitude or anything like that. And then when the first pill doesn't work, they say, well, if that one doesn't, in the commercials,
Try
they say,
this.
yeah, hey, we'll add this one to it.
It's
No
a
big
huge experiment going on, and people don't
deal.
even realize that. They're unwittingly part of an experiment to see what works and what doesn't work, because none of these drugs were studied long term prior to setting them out into the public.
Right. And yeah, and I learned the hard way in the beginning of my therapy journey that drugs only, or I shouldn't say drugs, pills, prescription pills, uh, only mask the issue.
Well, they treat the symptoms, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely the way to, yeah. Thank you, doctor.
No
Um,
problem. Send
they,
me a check. Okay, no, I'm kidding.
right.
But that's right.
the,
They treat symptoms. They
the issues
don't
are still
treat
there.
what's causing the symptoms.
Exactly. The issues are still there when the doctor says, hey, you've been on this for a really long time. Maybe you should try this one. Or when they don't work anymore because you've built up a tolerance, or, whatever. The issues are still there. So it, to you have to work on yourself and not rely on medications or Oprah.
Solely rely, right? Yeah, or
Exactly.
right, or
Yeah.
Oprah or untrained
Dr.
people on the
Phil.
internet giving you advice, or absolutely.
Yeah, you know, and I'm not, please understand, I'm not knocking church because I have faith
Sure.
and I believe. But I even thought at one point, if I just go to church more and pray harder, that's what happened. You know, that's what I need. And it just, there were so many things that I tried that didn't work because I wasn't working on the actual problem.
Mhm.
And it took me a very long time, up until probably 3 years ago, to understand and accept that.
Well,
Yeah.
let's give viewers, we're not going to go into all the details, but let's
Mhm.
give viewers just a rough idea of what you went through. Let's give them a rough idea of just, and again, again, to the degree that you're comfortable,
Mhm.
but what happened? What was your trauma?
Um, my stepfather sexually abused me for a period of
Mm.
3 to 4 years. Um,
How old were you when it started?
15-ish,
Mm.
somewhere around there. Basically, I was bullied into it in the beginning. And then I was told that it was to help make our family closer. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Wow,
He,
that's some serious gaslighting there, boy.
oh, yeah. One,
Well, that's not really gaslighting, but that's more like manipulation. That's
yeah.
grooming. That's him telling an impressionable young teenager that if you don't do this, our family not being close is your fault.
Oh, that's exactly what he told me.
Hmm.
When everything that went wrong in that house was my fault in
Hmm.
one way or another. And the only way I could atone for those mistakes was by sexual abuse. Is
Hmm.
what it was. But I had to make up for all my mistakes. Um, and he would use, he would bully me into it. He would tell me it was to help the family be closer. He would tell me that if I got it at home, then I wouldn't want to go out and look for it with
Hmm.
other boys and possibly get pregnant. Um,
Well, he
he
was
would,
protecting you, right?
yeah, oh, he was helping. He
Hmm.
was doing his part.
Hmm.
You know, he would tell me that secretly I was in love with him. He would, the manipulation tactics that he used on a 15-year-old child, coming from a man that is at least 35 at the
Hmm.
time. The tactics were epic, and I did not accept that fully and take and release the blame on myself until
Hmm.
probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Hmm. Well,
Um,
how did he groom you, as Melissa's pointing out? Thank you. And we're getting some great comments here.
mhm,
Fernando saying road to hope. Samantha saying age 6 here, no handbook. Meds are band-aids a lot of times.
mhm,
Ivan, hey, Ivan, how you doing? Thank you for your courage to share. Fernando saying he was a narcissist. Samantha saying
mhm,
total loser. How did he convince you that the blame? Remember, we talked a lot about that it was your fault
mhm.
if you had said so, if you had just said something. I've heard this hundreds of times from people who are victims of these abusers. Is they'll say to themselves, if I had just said something, none of this would have happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how he groomed you to believe that it's your fault.
Well, somehow or another, as a 15-year-old child who had no worldly experience, who was a very sheltered child, um, somehow that 15-year-old child in his mind uh, made advances and
Hmm.
acted like she wanted him. So he told me that at one point.
Mm.
He he would tell me things like, well, if you haven't, you don't say no.
Mm.
So obviously you like it.
Mm.
He would say, if it's such a big deal to you, if you hate it that much, why are you still here? To a
Mm.
15-year-old child
Mm.
who has no way of knowing how to leave.
Exactly. Like there's even an alternative, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, then he would shame me for his actions.
Mm.
Um, he would say things like, you obviously like it. That's why you're still here. Um, you know, that's why you haven't said anything, because you like it. Um, I mean, and Samantha, yes, I took it all in. I mean, I took it all in, believed it, and continued to blame myself for years, thinking that I truly deserved it. I was truly a bad person, because why would something like this happen to a good person?
Mm.
You know? Um,
Mm.
yeah, and
And if people don't work on that belief system, like Melissa's saying, harmful self-talk, that's exactly what it becomes. You
mhm,
start saying to yourself, "Well, there it must be because of me.
mhm.
I've done something to deserve this."
Yeah, thank you, Samantha. Fernando said, "Is he in jail?" No. He passed away. Um, honestly, I don't even know how many years it has been now. But that was, uh, some people have said that that was a trigger for my recent PTSD issues. But
Mm.
after I finally did move out, I did go to the police about what had happened. And you have to remember that this was back in the 80s,
Mm.
early 90s. Um, when
Victim blaming was just rampant, you know?
the police officer, when I went to file the report, I was in a room full of 10 other policemen
Hmm.
with people at their desks, and he's asking me questions. Where did he touch you? What did he do?
Mm.
One of his questions was, "What did you do uh, to make this happen? What did you do?" You know, basically, I answered 4 questions to the policeman and left,
Mm.
because
All males too, right?
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
because basically, just by his attitude, number 1, he didn't wanna be taking the time to even talk to me,
Mm.
and then number 2, when he said, "Well, what did you do?"
Hmm.
I'll never forget that, you
Mm.
know? Yeah,
Meaning, like, what did you do to
egg it on, to
Gotcha.
initiate it, to
Wow.
yeah, you know, "What did you do to make this happen?"
And people wonder why women don't come forward or abuse
That
victims don't come forward, you
that
know?
is exactly, yeah. Um, but basically, well, you know, they took the report and they were obligated to follow up on it, but because it had happened 6 months prior to when I filed the last time, had happened 6 months prior to me filing the report, and I had nothing physical
Mm.
to show that it happened, nothing concrete. And this is before cell phones and things like that. So I couldn't prove it. It became a he said, she said. So nothing ever happened to him, other than he became shunned by a lot of people because they believed me,
Mm.
thankfully. My family and real people stood behind me. Uh, so, you know, nothing happened to him that should have happened. I'll put
Mm.
it that way. Um, so, you know, that, yeah. So that stayed with me for a long time, that he didn't have to atone for his mistakes the way I
Mm.
had to atone for mine,
Mm.
according to him.
And
So,
then you had to live in that environment with him and your mom, and that whole situation just became more and more oppressive for you. So let me just hit the pause button real quick here. So
Sure.
Samantha and Melissa are sharing that they too had these issues when they were younger.
Mhm.
What would you say to Samantha and Melissa? Again, I don't know, Samantha and Melissa, what healing
Right.
stage you guys are in, but what would you tell them to kind of inspire them or help them to work on it?
No matter what people tell you, what to believe about yourself. Oh crap! Sorry, my light just went
That's
out.
okay.
Um, no matter what people tell you about yourself, you know the truth,
Mm,
and you know what really happened. And you, as the victim of the abuse, it is not your fault. There is the abuser is the abuser, and it is the abuser's fault.
100%. 100%. Not only is
Yeah,
it not the abuse victim's fault that it happened, it's not the
right.
victim's fault that they didn't say anything about it, that they didn't stop the
Exactly.
abuse. This
Right.
crap that
Because
people are told that you allowed yourself to be abused. You're abusing people when you tell them that. But I'm sorry, keep going.
no, no, that's exactly right. I mean, and just because you don't say anything when it's going on doesn't mean that you like it.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that you accept the abuse. It means that you're scared. It means that you're afraid. It means that you, I can't even think of the words right
It's
now.
okay. Just feel it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that it then becomes your
Hmm.
fault. You know, it's hard to stand up. It's hard to say things like this. I mean, this happened when I was 15 and it's still hard for me to talk about. Um, you know, it's not an easy road by any means, but it can be traveled. You can make the journey. Um, you just have to you just have to know that you deserve better.
Sure.
The victim needs to know that the victim deserves better
Hmm.
than what the abuser did, better than what victim blaming people say. Then the victim deserves to be heard and to be understood, to be accepted, to know that they're not alone and that they're loved. You know, the victim needs to feel like a person.
Sure. And the problem is, as you know, prior to working on yourself, usually,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying it's all the time, but
Mhm.
most people who have been through what you've been through, their self-esteem is non-existent. So
Ex-
for them to feel that they deserve better or that they can even heal from this takes work to get to that point. So now that you've given us an idea of what you went through, which again, like many of the viewers are saying, very brave to be able to share that. How
Thank you,
did
by the
that
way.
affect? Sure. How did that affect your self-esteem? How did the abuse affect how Candace felt about Candace?
Uh, well, when I left the house, um, I was, in my mind, a bad person.
Hmm.
I had done something in my life at some point to deserve everything that had happened. Couldn't figure out what it was,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously I'd done something. You know, good little Southern girls, that just doesn't happen to them.
Mm.
And it happened to me.
And if it
So
does, it's
yeah,
because you ain't such a good little Southern girl.
yeah, I did something wrong,
Mm.
you know. And then the boyfriend that helped me to get the courage to leave the house. I moved in with him. He was an abuser too, just in a different way. So I basically stayed in a toxic relationship for a really long time after the fact because I thought I deserved that too. You know, for a long time, I thought that it really was me, because obviously something's wrong, because these guys, you know, all these people can't be wrong, but they were. Okay. And then my self-esteem was just really low. I thought I deserved everything bad that happened to me. Everything bad that did happen was my fault in my mind. I couldn't shake that for a very long time. I didn't take care of myself. I developed eating issues because I hated my body. It was a defense mechanism, and in some ways, you know, if I'm not attractive, then it's not going to happen. You know, everything was always my fault in my mind. There was nothing good about me. There was nothing. I didn't deserve anything good. So why even worry about it? Why try? So yeah, it was, self-esteem was really, really low. You know, I was willing to take whatever happened, and I took it in as me, you know, good or bad, which, by the way, in my mind, nothing was ever good. So yeah.
Let me just hit the pause button for a
Yep.
second here, because I want to talk quickly to Angie, who's saying, my heart hurts for you. I had questions, but the whole thing is triggering me really bad right now. Many of the feelings you talked about, I see in myself. Anyways, thanks you for sharing. So Angie, if you're still on, I don't know if you needed to take a little break, but maybe if you're still there, now it's time to take the it's okay pill, Angie. Tell yourself it's okay that this is triggering me. It's okay. What's being triggered inside of you is the pain that has to be healed. You're hearing Candace, after working on this extensively, you know, if you want to use a cancer analogy, she's in remission now. Now it flares up a little bit now and then, but she's got the tools, and if we have time, we're going to get to that, but she has the tools to get it back into remission. So Angie, whatever you're feeling, this is the time to do that work with Angie. This is the time to say to Angie, it's okay. It's okay that I'm triggered here. It's okay. What I would offer to you, Angie, right now is just remind yourself of where you are. You're not back with the abuser. You're in a safe place right now. I'm assuming you're in a safe place as of right now, and identify what you can control. Breathe into that and just soothe Angie right now, like I'm trying to do with you. Just say to yourself, it's okay. It's okay that I'm being triggered right now, but I got to keep working on that. I have to let myself feel that so I can begin healing that. Okay. So, and I want to get back. I'm sorry if I'm going to jump around here, but Fernando asked a really good question that I wanted to get to, because Fernando shared. Sure. Yes, please. Sorry.
Can I just say, Angie, if you're still here, I hope you still continue to watch. Just remember one thing: you survived the abuse. You survived the situation. You're here for a reason. And, you know, if you can survive the abuse, you can basically do anything. I know it doesn't feel like it a lot of times.
Great
but
point.
really
Resiliency.
Yeah, but really deep down, you are a lot stronger than you think.
Excellent. Excellent point, because that is so true. The fact that Angie survived the abuse and is here is a testament to that healing power within her that is helping her. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Fernando saying, when the person that abused me passed away, I didn't know how to feel. How did you feel? Yeah, right. That's a good one. How did you feel? Because I think you mentioned that triggered some of the trauma too, but address that one.
before, understand that I had not spoken, seen, or even said his name. And Dr. Steve can attest to this because I wouldn't say it in therapy for a very long time, for at least 20, 25 years. And then I knew he had gotten sick. My mom stayed married to him after I left. That's another show, basically. I knew he had gotten sick, and he was very sick with a cancer. But it's not like I was keeping tabs on him.
Sure.
Then he passed away, and I was not. So the passing wasn't unexpected, but the phone call to me was. And so, like you said, Fernando, perfectly, I didn't know how to feel. I got the phone call at work, like 10:30 in the morning. And I hung up. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say sorry. I didn't say anything. I just hung the phone up and went to the bathroom and sobbed. And I couldn't understand why. I was mad because I was giving him emotions. I was mad at myself for crying about the fact that he passed away. And to this day, I don't understand why I had such a strong reaction. And I have had several therapists tell me that his passing was a trigger, because before he passed, I was doing very well in my life. I had a great job. I was a great employee. Had a great marriage. Had a great relationship with my daughter. I was maintaining. I was doing great. Yeah, I had a few issues with sleep problems. I had a few issues with things here and there, but nothing major. And then he passes, and I do basically a 180 over time, or 360, or whatever the number, I don't know.
Sure.
I eventually got to where I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to see people. I didn't want to live life, and the PTSD was really ramping up. I was depressed a lot more. I had a really hard time with the night terrors and the sleep issues after that. And so it was at that time that I got back into therapy, because I'd been out of it for 10 years or more. I tried therapy when I first left the house, and I was not ready to talk. Everybody kept pushing me to therapy, saying, you have to go to therapy. You have to go. I went because they made me, basically. But it just wasn't for me at that point. And then, so I got back into therapy after he passed away. And I guess just the idea of no closure, like I never was able to confront him. I was never able to show him that I won, basically. That was a major trigger, but it also kind of just let everything out. Everything that I'd been not dealing with basically just stood up and said, oh, we're still here. And that was the process. And so
and that's when you got into doing it even more so.
Yeah, it was
so
very
I hope
therapy.
And Fernando, what I would say to you, brother, is I don't know if you've worked on that trauma. I don't know if, what level of healing, or what, where you are on that trauma continuum. I don't know if you're more in the post-traumatic stress disorder part of it, more, obviously Candace is more on the post-traumatic growth side. There's sometimes when she slips back in to some of that traumatic stress, but then she's got tools to manage her way out of that. So Fernando, please, bro, if there's something in there that you feel still needs to be healed, you got to work on it. You got to get into a situation where you can talk that out, because what a lot of what trauma work is a form of exposure therapy, but you don't just throw the person into the pool and expect them, to swim. There were many instances, as Candace and I did more of this, where I would prep her. I would say, look, you've got to spend this week before we meet again, getting your mind wrapped around the fact that you can handle what we're going to get into. You've got to get, there's a psychological aspect of sports psychology that I weave in when I'm working with clients. And that's around the idea of visualizing yourself being able to handle that. So being able to handle the memories. So Fernando, it sounds like there's some memories in there that need some healing. So Melissa is saying, what would you suggest for a very specific instance? Now, I've read this a couple times, Melissa, so I don't really know what you're asking me, but I want to read it anyhow because it's poignant about what trauma victims go through when they get triggered. So that being, I thought I had worked through some of the damage after I helped terminate my father's right to his child with my ex-stepmother. He was abusing my 3-year-old brother as he did to me for 10 years. Wow. I couldn't do anything about what happened to me and my other siblings, but I could testify to help save my baby half brother from the same fate. Beautiful. In doing so, my father fled to California because of this. He made threats against my daughter, who was a baby at the time. Wow, that's not that in of itself will trigger you. Yeah. My brother is now 9. It's been 6 years. I ran into him in the Walmart parking lot in my town 2 months ago. I had a full-blown breakdown in my car just from the panic it induced. So I'm assuming you're saying you ran into your brother, not your father. So just from that statement, Melissa, is, you're in a pretty active phase of post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I don't know what degree it's a disorder, because again, there's a spectrum when it comes to all this. Not like if you caught my last show about black or white thinking, people have this idea that all of these diagnoses are diagnosing is an all or nothing thing. What I would recommend to you, Melissa, is the panic that you're feeling is part of the fight, flight, or freeze that you feel when you get triggered. So those are issues that you have to deal with. What are your thoughts, Candace?
No, the fight or flight and the freeze. When the actual abuse was happening to me, the freeze would kick in. I did not know that there was an actual freeze option until I was in therapy, and I didn't know that that's what I was doing. So therefore, because I basically laid there, for lack of a better term, that's why I believed my stepfather when he said, "You obviously like it." So your terror and your fear become so great, you don't know what to do.
Exactly. And Melissa's clarifying that it wasn't her brother she ran into, it was her dad.
Oh,
it was the abuser.
Yeah.
So Melissa, sister, whatever reaction you had in that moment, you have got to take massive doses of the It's Okay pill.
It's completely understandable. It's completely
natural.
Natural.
That's normal. Exactly.
Yeah. That you would have that reaction to seeing your abuser that inflicted so much pain and fear and trauma on you, that you're gonna I'm just thinking about it, because I ran into mine after the fact, after I had moved on, or moved out, I should say.
How many years ago was that after?
4, 5, maybe.
Still fresh wound, man.
Yeah, and same thing. At first you're like, oh my God, this can't be happening. Then you're like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Then you start to think, who are my allies if I need help? And then if you're out in public, you're just like, you feel like a sitting duck. you
That's the
know.
hypervigilance, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's why, I mean, you can see it now. I'm in my own house and I have a wall behind me,
Mm.
you know? So yeah, I mean, that response is completely natural, you know, and it's completely okay that you had a response. I mean, it would almost be more concerning if you didn't have a response to me. I mean, I don't want to be like a
No,
doctor.
you're absolutely right. And I
Yeah.
like Ivan's saying right here, Ivan has made some really good comments about guilt and toxic guilt and all that, but he's saying it's old body memory. It's literally in us until it's healed. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's what trauma does. It gets woven into us and it sits there like an infection.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like if I had a cut on my hand and I'm not treating it, it pumps out infection into my
Mm-hmm.
bloodstream. This unhealed trauma, like Ivan's saying, that's in our bodies, pumps out infection into our, not our, well, I mean, now they're seeing a connection in with a lot of illnesses, but into
Mm-hmm.
our stream of consciousness, into our feelings. So
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I can remember going numb just because I thought I saw him.
Hmm.
You know, somebody that resembled him. You know, at first glance, and then you immediately just, you know, oh my God, I have to run. I have to protect myself. You know, yeah, yeah, it the fight. I always get tongue tied.
It's
Fight or
okay.
flight, and freeze. I mean, yeah, that's very old hat for me, and I still do it to this day. You know, the
Mm.
hypervigilance, the hyper, you know, head on a swivel kind of thing. Yeah.
Mhm. That's what hypervigilance is. If people don't know, hypervigilance is you have an exaggerated startle response, or you're always kind of like, you're just waiting for that next thing to come
Sorry,
in
I had to take a
and
drink.
traumatize you. And
Yeah.
that in of itself sets up a whole series of negative coping mechanisms because now you're seeing the world around you as a constantly threatening space.
Melissa is saying she's having a panic attack in one of her messages.
Okay, I didn't see that, Melissa. So
Yeah.
what I would just, again, Melissa, this is a good moment for you to just soothe Melissa. Say, breathe into you, saying, it's okay. It's okay that I'm having this panic attack right now. Try to identify what's feeding that panic, Melissa. And to the best of your ability right now, Melissa, don't hate how you're feeling. Don't hate how you're feeling. Feel that breath coming in. Good. She's saying it's decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to Samantha too for helping Melissa in that moment. And see,
Yes.
thank you for pointing that out. But Melissa, panic is a very intense negative emotion. I'm not saying to love it, but just accept it. Look around you. If there's nothing threatening you and it's an internal experience, remind yourself that you can, exactly like Ivan's saying, Melissa, you're safe. But take it easy on Melissa. Melissa, seriously, sister, the fact that you're still hurting because of this, it's okay. You've got to accept that these wounds that you have in you were inflicted upon you. You
Yes.
didn't ask
Exactly.
for them.
Yes.
So you abusing the abuse victim internally by saying, "Oh, I hate this panic. I shouldn't be like this. Why am I like this? I can't." You're
You're feeding it.
re-traumatizing yourself.
Yeah.
What's that?
You're feeding it. You're feeding the monster, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. Can I just say, Melissa, a few things that I do when I have
Great.
panic issues?
Thank you.
Hold your phone just because it's solid and it gives you a feeling of stability. If
Mm.
you hold it in your hands,
Because now you're focusing on
exactly.
exactly
Focus on what the phone feels like. Focus on, you know, how
what your feet
solid it
feel
is.
like. What exactly?
Yes. Put your feet flat on the floor
Melissa's
and
saying her
remind.
cat is here now. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly. I've done that
Beautiful. The
too.
cat sensed the cat animals are very empathetic. They know.
They are. And then if you have a soft blanket, for me, I rub the blanket on my face and focus on the feeling, the soft feeling, and focus on how comforting that blanket is. You know, you have to refocus you you have to refocus on what you're doing.
And center yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. You have to recenter yourself and retrain your focus on something other than your panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
And that's,
But
I mean,
above all, Melissa,
yeah.
don't hate how you feel. I can't impress upon people watching this the destructive nature of hating how you feel. I'm not
Mhm,
saying to love it, but remember, there's always three energetic choices: hate, love, and neutral.
mhm,
Okay, neutrality. Remember, in the atom, positive, negative, and neutral. Access some neutral emotion by accepting. It's okay how I'm feeling. It's okay.
mhm,
It's okay that I can hear my son breathing. Excellent.
mhm,
Excellent. It's okay that I'm feeling this. Melissa, you got to do some more work on this, sister. You
mhm.
got to get into a situation where you can talk more of this out, because I'm guessing Melissa's relationship with Melissa ain't that great.
No, no. There you go. I'm under the blanket now.
Beautiful.
Just, yeah. I mean, the comfort, whatever works for you as far as comfort, I have found for me that helps bring me down faster.
Beautiful.
Yeah. You know, if you're, I've had it happen at work, and I just have to center myself and remind myself that I'm not there. You know, I'm not experiencing anything right now other than a physical reaction to something that is away from me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's where meditation and
Mhm.
a lot of these meditation apps can help, is because it helps you begin to develop more of
Mhm.
an ability to manage your thoughts and emotions by breathing, by just allowing yourself to feel that. So Candace, I just checked I can't believe how fast this has gone, but let's
Oh,
talk, let's talk a little bit quickly about how your relationship with yourself has improved. Um, yeah, and then I want to talk a little bit again about how you manage ebbing and flowing. Like we
mhm,
talked before the interview, that the
mhm.
holidays have triggered some things. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? No need to apologize,
Yeah,
Melissa.
exactly.
You're
Melissa,
allowed to have, sorry, go
don't
ahead.
apologize. Yeah, no. Um, you know, like I said before, even a year ago, I couldn't picture myself being able to do this. I have accepted a lot of things about myself that I didn't think were acceptable 2 years ago. I have accepted that I am me now for a reason, that I'm a lot stronger than I gave myself credit for. Um, and I've also accepted that I'm still a work in progress,
Mm.
that I still have work to do. Um,
And that's
that
okay.
Yeah, and yeah, and that's not a bad thing. Um, yeah, yeah, and then I'm thinking,
That's okay.
I'm way more accepting of myself in general, to
Mm.
myself, than I have ever been before in my life. And for me to say that, that's a big deal, because I have never liked myself.
Mm.
I have never accepted things about myself that didn't fit a certain mold. Um, I was always able to pick out imperfections. I was always able to do really bad self talk,
Mm.
um, never good self talk. I was always the first person to blame me for anything.
Mm.
And I have gotten away from that, and it's only through work that I've been able to do that, to have the tools to know that no matter how hard it is, it's going to be okay.
Mm.
You know, no
And that
matter.
optimism gets
Mhm,
literally abused out of you as a kid. What happens when we're in any kind of prolonged abuse situation is the
mhm.
pessimism just takes over.
Well, there's no hope. You feel like there's no end in sight, you know, and especially when you're a child. And I use that term because I was a very naive child.
Mm,
Even though I was 15, I had no way to know how to deal with an adult who was trying to manipulate me the way he did.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, when you when you're taught that adults know everything,
mm,
and you're supposed to listen to your adults, respect your elders, be a good little Southern girl,
mm.
you know, and all of a sudden,
That cultural conditioning, man.
oh yeah, and you know, and then add to the fact that it was the 80s. You know, it wasn't like it is now where everybody, you know, is, I shouldn't say everybody, people are more willing to talk about things, obviously, than they were back then.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, it just, you feel hopeless. You feel like there's no way out. You're gonna die like this, or you want to die. You know, you just don't want to wake up.
mhm,
And you know, so I now that I have better perspective on things and understand that he was an abuser, he was the wrong person, he was the one at fault,
mm. It was
not
all
me.
his fault, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't deserve anything that happened. So now that I have that perspective, it is easier for me to focus on myself and bettering my perspective on myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Barb, who was with us in the early parts of these live
Mhm.
streams. Good to see you back, Barb. Sorry we could never
Yeah,
arrange a talk. She's saying, I want to get rid of those tapes that keep playing in my head.
exactly.
And you
It's
know,
it's a loop. It's a loop. And you just have to, when the loop starts, Dr. Steve told me this, when the loop starts, you have to hit pause and you have to talk back. You know, you have to be conscious of your thinking and what you're saying to yourself. And you have to be conscious of how you talk to yourself.
mhm.
For a long time, I didn't even realize that I was talking bad to myself, but that's exactly what I was doing.
Well, that's what
You know,
happens
I
when
was,
a child gets
yeah.
abused. They internalize that relationship with themselves, and they're not
Hmm.
even aware that that doesn't have to be that way.
Hmm. Exactly. I mean, I wasn't aware that he was wrong.
Mm,
I wasn't aware that he was a bad person. You know, I wasn't aware that I was the good person, you know,
mm.
and it's all because what he told me. And yes, it is so much easier to believe the bad than to believe good.
Sure. Because no one teaches kids a lot of times how to believe in good, how to be optimistic.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
so I've been saying, sorry, it's torture to be in such a place as a child. It is,
Mhm.
because a
It
child
is.
does not know that this is not supposed to be happening. And like Melissa's saying, I'm from Alabama. I get this complete, like, you know, she gets that. And that cultural conditioning, a lot of times people aren't disputing. They're not asking themselves, well, wait a minute, just because my culture is teaching me that this is the way it has to be, doesn't mean it has to be. You know, it's
Because I said so.
what's that?
That's exact because I said so. That's exactly what you're told. Because I said so. And you know, yeah. And you have to do it blindly. You have to do what they say blindly, and you're given this way to behave that is unrealistic.
Exactly. And like Barb is saying, the abuser, they act like it's no big deal. And then that teaches, and kids get that are being abused think, oh, this must be happening with other kids. This must be normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Either that or, you know, I was old enough that I knew it wasn't a normal
Sure.
thing. So he could use that shame against me, and he would. He would shame me, saying, "Well, what are people going to say about you when you tell people what's going on?
Mm.
They're going to look at you and
Master
say you did
manipulator,
it.
some of these people are.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're going to think you're a little loose girl, a little
mm,
hooker, basically, and it's all your fault anyway.
mm,
So do what you want, you know." And he would play the angles. He was very
mm.
good at playing the
And they are
angles.
these, and I'm not obviously giving them credit, but a lot of
No.
these groomers, a lot of these manipulators, they're masters at being able to make abusers feel that it's them. They are the
Mhm.
reason they're getting abused.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and I've heard
Yeah.
stories of like when some they've been told things like, don't do this with everybody. It's just you. You're special. This is a special relationship we have. So, yes, Samantha, masters of manipulation. So, Melissa's asking, and it's funny you asking this, Melissa, because I usually whenever I have somebody on, we'll decompress after the show. But Melissa's saying, "Are you going to be okay after this conversation ends, Candace?"
Yes, I'm going to be fine. I wouldn't, and I trust Dr. Steve implicitly. Um, I would not be able to do this if I wasn't going to be okay once the conversation ends. That's not to say that I might have a moment or two to where I need to just kind of process, but it's not going to spiral. It's not going to turn me into, you know, it's not going to it's not a trigger. I'll put it that way. I'm at a point now where I can manage the triggers and I can see them for what they are. And I'm
And what they're
getting,
not.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, they feel real, but they're not reality. Um, so it's just, yeah, I'm definitely in a better place. Thank you for asking, Melissa.
Great. And Melissa saying the abusers also condition you to believe your value lies in the opinions of others. That is the
Oh,
weakness
that's
of every
exactly.
teenage girl. Yep.
Mhm. That's exactly what he did. And for me, I mean, all teenage girls are worried about their looks. It's human nature. And so yeah, he would use that against me too. What are people going to say about you? They're not going to blame me. You're just who's going to believe you anyway? And if they do, guess what they're going to say? you know
Exactly.
so yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
Candace, thank you for coming on. Candace, and just to clarify, anybody watching this now or when we post it, Candace and I had been talking about this for a while.
Mhm.
In no way, shape, or form would I have even asked Candace if she was open to doing this if I didn't feel her
Mhm.
treatment was at a certain point. And
Yeah.
in no way, shape, or form did she feel pressured to do this or anything like this. In fact, from the feedback you've given me, Candace, is this is helping you heal.
It actually is, to see the responses that I'm getting. It's kind of a reinforcement of, I'm not by myself. I mean, I know that, but to feel it is completely different.
Mm,
You know, yeah, yeah, this is just a reinforcing of the good that's coming out of my work. So yes, it definitely is a help.
great. Well, Candace, hang on after we're done so we can
Mhm.
just decompress a little bit.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Samantha. Thank you, Melissa.
And thank
You
you
guys have
everyone
been
for all
wise.
your comments.
Yes, everyone else.
The whole reason I'm doing these live streams, these mental health live streams, is to just help people realize that they've got to work on these issues. They can't, and you're helping us heal
Thank
too.
you,
Yeah,
Fernando.
thank you, Fernando.
Mhm.
You've got to work on these things that are causing you pain, because if you don't, they will work on you. They will continue to
Yes.
work on you in the background in multiple subtle ways. This is why you guys hear me railing against a lot of these unlicensed, untrained, inexperienced people giving mental health advice, because the trauma that we go through as human beings gets woven into us, into our minds, not only psychologically and emotionally, but physically. And there's a large degree of skill needed. And I'm not saying I'm Mr. Wonderful, but I do have 20 years of experience training. And that is what you need to bring to bear when you're helping people. So if you have alcoholism, sexual abuse, anger, whatever issue, whatever psychological, emotional issue that we all have, you got to work on it, people. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. If you had a toothache, if you had a knee ache, if your heart was, you get professional help. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. What are your thoughts?
And well, no, there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in needing help. If you don't get the help that you need, you can't take care. If you have children, if you have a husband, if you have pets, you can't take care of anything else in your life if you don't take care of yourself first. I've learned that the hard way. Yeah. And you guys, thank you all for the compliments. I really appreciate it. You guys are helping me just as much as you say I'm helping you. So thank you so much. And Barb, one thing I wanted to say earlier about Dr. Steve, I've seen several therapists in my adult life, and there have been times where I went through 4 or 5 therapists before I was able to find one that I could connect with, that I could trust completely, and then I could feel like I was getting help, like I was able to receive what was being given to me. If your counselor or your therapist isn't clicking with you, or you're not clicking back, you have to change. And there's no shame in changing therapists, because it's just the same as trying to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. If you guys don't click, you don't click.
Exactly. And that goodness of fit. And to be honest, I almost fired Candace one night when she told me I look like RuPaul. And I've never gotten over that.
I did without the makeup.
That's okay. That's okay. Candace knows, I'm very serious about helping people heal, but you got to bring some humor into it. You got to bring some lightness into it. And Candace and I have shared many more. We've had our political differences too. We've had arguments about that. See, everyone's saying, but the key to this, like Candace said, is you have to find somebody that you feel comfortable with. You have to
be able to trust.
Exactly.
I have told things to Dr. Steve that only 3 people in the world know about, and 2 of them are on this call right here. So if you can't find a therapist that you trust to that degree, personally, I don't think that you can accept what they're going to give back to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're not clicking, there's no problem. There's no shame in firing your therapist and finding another
or
one.
telling them, look, dude, or lady, or whoever you're working with, this isn't working. We got to figure out why I'm not getting this, why this isn't sinking in. So absolutely, if you're working with somebody, go into your next session and say, hey, look, what's going on? Why am I still not healing here?
Yeah.
Great.
Exactly. I mean, we've had those conversations before too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So great. Well, Candace, thank you for coming on. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, Fernando saying ghost them, right? That's one way to do it. But I also recommend you've got to give feedback. You know, there's this idea that
Mhm.
you can't tell your doctor what's wrong or whatever, because you're lucky to have them. And I've had plenty of medical doctors where you get that vibe. But in
Mhm.
this field, if your therapist, if your counselor, your psychologist, whoever is not open to feedback from you about how things are going, that's
Mhm.
not a good sign. That's not a good
Not at
sign,
all.
because that means they
Mhm.
can't handle constructive criticism. So Melissa saying, thank you for trusting us with your story.
Mhm.
Melissa, thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on. Please work on Melissa's relationship with Melissa tonight as you're
Yes.
drifting off to bed or whatever, looking in the mirror, say to yourself, honey, it's okay. It's okay that I'm still hurting from this.
Yeah. Just, it's okay, Melissa. I mean, I know it doesn't feel like it. Um, the feelings are tough. Dr. Steve can attest to this. It took me a long time. It took me probably 3 years to get to the point where I would even close my eyes in the same room with
Mm.
him. The feelings suck. The feelings are tough. Like Dr. Steve said, you don't have to like them, you don't have to love them, but you have to accept them.
And work on
And yeah, and know that by working on them, you are making progress on yourself.
them. Absolutely.
You know, you're moving forward. It may be a slow move, but it's whatever works for
And
you.
that movement sometimes will be like this, where it feels like movement and then it's not like movement. Well, everybody, thank you for all your comments. This was one of our most commented on live streams so far. Excuse me. So thank you again. I'll be on next week. I don't know, leading up into the holidays, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but I will, please, if you're watching this, set your notifications, because there's a chance I may jump on during the day as the holidays just to check in with people. So please keep working on yourselves. Please accept what we are conditioned as a culture to hate. We are conditioned as a culture to ignore. We are conditioned to look at our darkness, our pain, our, thanks, Barb, all of that as something to hide and keep away from people. I feel a bit lighter after the panic attack. Great. Well, guess what, Melissa? You learned a new way
You
to
may
deal with the panic attack.
you may have exercised a demon.
Exactly.
You know, that's
Exactly.
one way to look at it.
Exactly.
You know?
So
Yeah.
again, everybody, thank you. Please, everyone, have a great weekend. We'll probably have Candace back again next month to talk a little bit more. So, and also too, if anyone's catching this live or after we post it, if anybody wants to be a guest and talk about some of the things they've been through, or if there are any other mental health providers, licensed mental health providers out there who want to come on and talk about how they work with people, please shoot me a text. Here's the number. If you're catching this on one of the platforms, the more people that subscribe to the videos or join us, the more, you know, Facebook and Twitter and all these and YouTube's, they set the video, they let more people see the videos. So please subscribe to us on Facebook and keep your questions coming. But above all, accept your degree of mental illness. We all have it, just like we have a degree of physical illness, but work on it. Okay, people?
Mhm.
So I will see you again next week. Probably, I don't know, probably Wednesday and Friday again, and then we'll see where we're at. Probably do some seasonal related shows and then go from there. So Candace, any closing thoughts?
Just again, you know, like you said, just accept what is, you know, accept what you can control. That will give you a better sense of control on yourself.
Exactly.
And sometimes that goes such a long way for me that, you know, it just calms me down to feel in control.
Beautiful.
You know, and you guys in the chat, Ivan, Fernando, Samantha, Barb, Melissa, Angie, I think was her name, that had to get off. You guys, thank you. And just, I hope you guys stay safe and are okay.
Okay, guys, and hang on for 1 second, Candace, after I log
Sure.
off, and then we'll chat a little bit. So again, guys, thanks for joining me. Again, my name's Dr. Stephen Walker. Please work on your mental illness. Look at it like something that we all have. It's a degree of mental illness. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Okay. All right, people, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Okay. Anyone has any show ideas or whatever, text them to me or anything like that. So we'll talk to you on probably Monday next week. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Candace.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. We'll see you. Take care.